Welcome. I hope you all are doing well. Today, we bring you a fascinating and mind-blowing story. This is not just a tale but a reality that will make you think deeply. So, let's dive into this amazing journey.
Slave Narratives, a folk history of slavery in the United States from interviews with former slaves. Volume 3, Florida Narratives, Bill Austin. He says his name is not Williams, is an ex-slave who gained his freedom because his mistress found it more advantageous to free him than to watch him. Austin lives near Greenwood, Jackson County, Florida, on a small farm that he and his children operate. He says that he does not know his age, does not remember ever having heard it, but he must be pretty old, he says, because I was a right smart size when Mr. Smith went off to fight. He thinks he may be over 100, and he looks it, but he is not sure. Austin was born between Greene and Hancock counties on the Oconee River in Georgia. He uses the name of the counties interchangeably. He cannot be definite as to just which one was his birthplace. The line between them was right there by us, he says. His father was Jack. For want of a surname of his own, he took that of his father and called himself Jack Smith. During a temporary shortage of funds on his master's part, Jack and Bill's mother was sold to a planter in the north part of the state. It was not long after his emancipation that Bill ever saw either of them again. Bill's father, Jack, was regarded as a fairly good carpenter, mason, and bricklayer. At times his master would let him do small jobs of repairing a building for neighboring planters. These jobs sometimes netted him hams, bits of cornmeal, cloth for dresses for his wife and children, and other small gifts. These he either used for his small family or bartered with the other slaves. Sometimes he sold them to the slaves for money. Cash was not altogether unknown among the slaves of the Smith place. Austin gives an interesting description of his master, Thomas Smith. He says that sometimes he was real rich and all of us had a good time. The work wasn't hard then, 'cause we had big crops, and he would borrow some help from the other white folks. He used to give us meat every day and plenty of other things. One time he bought all of us shoes, and on Sunday night would let us go to wherever the preacher was holding meeting. He used to give my papa money sometimes, too. But they used to whisper that he would gamble a lot. We used to see a whole lot of men come up to the house sometimes and stay up most of the night. Sometimes they would stay 3 or 4 days, and once in a while after one of these big doings, Mr. Smith would look worried, and we wouldn't get no meat and very little anything else for a long time. He would be crabby and beat us for any little thing. He used to tell my papa he wouldn't have a damn cent until he made some crops. A few years before he left to enter the war, the slave owner came into possession of a store near his plantation. The store was in Greensboro. Either because the business paid or because of another one of his economic bad spells, ownership of his plantation passed to a man named Kimball, and most of the slaves, with the exception of Bill Austin and 1 or 2 women, either transferred with the plantation or sold. Bill was kept to do errands and general work around the store. Bill learned much about the operation of the store, with the result that when Mr. Smith left with the Southern Army, he left his wife and Bill to continue its operation. By this time, there used to be frequent stories whispered among the slaves in the neighborhood, and who came with their masters into the country store, of how this or that slave ran away, and with the white manpower of the section, engaged in war, remained at large for long periods or escaped altogether. These stories always interested Austin, with the result that one morning he was absent when Mrs. Smith opened the store. He remained away 8 or 9 days, I guess, before a friend of the Smiths found him near Macon and threatened he would half kill him if he didn't return immediately. Either the threat or the fact that in Macon there were no readily available foodstuffs to be eaten all day as in the store caused Austin to return. He was roundly berated by his mistress, but finally forgiven by the worried woman who needed his help around the store more than she needed the contrite promises and effusive declarations that he would behave all right for the rest of his life. And he did behave for several whole months, But by this time he was a great big boy, and he had caught sight of a young woman who took his fancy on his trip to Macon. She was free herself. Her father had bought her freedom and that of her mother a few years before, and did odd jobs for the white people in the city for a livelihood. Bill had thoughts of going back to Macon, marrying her, and bringing her back to work for Mrs. with me. He asked permission to go, and was refused on the ground that his help was too badly needed at the store. Shortly afterward, he had again disappeared. Mrs., however, knew too much of his plans by this time, and it was no difficult task to have him apprehended in Macon. Bill may not have had such great objections to the apprehension either, he says, because by this time he had learned the young woman in Macon had no slightest intention to give up her freedom to join him at Greensboro. A relative of Mrs. Smith gave Austin a sound beating on his return. For a time it had the desired effect, and he stayed at the store and gave no further trouble. Mrs. Smith, however, thought of a surer plan of keeping him in Greensboro. She called him and told him he might have his freedom. Bill never attempted to again leave the place. Although he did not receive a cent for his work until his master had died, the store passed into the hands of one of Mr. Smith's sons, and the emancipation of all the slaves was a matter of 8 or 10 years' history. When he finally left Greene and Hancock counties, about 55 years ago, Austin settled in Jackson County. He married and began the raising of a family. At present, he has 19 living children, more grandchildren than he can accurately tell, and is living with his third wife, a woman in her 30s. End of section 3.
This was today's story. I hope you liked it. If this story touched your heart, be sure to share it with others. We look forward to your valuable feedback. Until then, take care and keep us in your prayers. Goodbye.